My name's Eli Delaney, and I have the honor of meeting some pretty cool people. These are the entrepreneurs, the artists, the creatives, the game changers that are making a positive impact in the people that they meet. And I'm a firm believer that the people that you meet can get you anywhere you want to go. And this show is my way of sharing them with you. It's my way of also helping you meet cool people. All right, welcome back to another show, everybody. So today's guest, we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. This person happens to be my longest standing friend of life. And we're going to have a lot of fun with this one. By the way, the show may run a little bit long, considering most of the time when she and I do get together and talk, it usually ends up being like 6-hour conversations. So let me introduce her. This is Debi Potter. She has owned dogs for over 33 years. And she had the sad situation that we all do not want to hear about, which is where she lost her first dog to stomach cancer when she was only a few years old. And from that time, Debi immediately went into a spot of, I don't want to ever see this happen again. So she started studying canine nutrition, and she's been studying canine nutrition for over 23 years now. And from that, she has actually led to the point of making and selling dog treats via her business, Snake River Barkery. Snake River Barkery has actually been selling treats, the best treats, by the way. My boys, when I had them, they've passed away since, but when we had them, they loved these treats. And now she's actually got her online store with it. She's selling them across the country, all the fun stuff. And I wanted to bring her on to kind of share her story of how she got into business. So with that said, Debi, thanks for coming and hanging out with me today.
Well, thanks for having me.
So I kind of gave you a little bit of your story, of your background, but let's go ahead and kind of go in. Tell us a bit more about how, kind of what happened in the initial point, but more importantly, how did you get into the, pet nutrition side of things?
Well, when my first dog, Sarah, passed away, she was only 10. And so it was really young for a retriever mix to pass away from something that brutal. Mm-hmm. And I just had the nagging feeling that there was something more that I could have done for her. And I kept thinking, was there something that I gave her? You trusted large pet food companies to, have food that's nutritious and healthy and it's not going to hurt them. But I started to wonder, it's like, well, is there something more to this? And so I started really getting into canine nutrition and trying to understand what they actually need. And so my first book was I bought Dr. Pitcairn's Veterinary Guide and started reading through that. And so it was quite interesting to learn about what they actually need nutritionally versus what actually gets put in the dog food. So.
No, that is, it is such an important thing. And I mean, Morgan, my daughter, so you guys have known each other for quite a while now as well. And that's something she's super crazy into as well. But when did you come up with the idea of, okay, I've been making these treats. I got into them. These are healthy. These are all natural products. I know the heart and soul you've put into it, because you and I've had so many conversations about it. When did you decide that you wanted to actually start selling them to other people, like start the business side of it?
Well, Snake River Barkery was born when I was taking my dogs to their vet checkups, and my veterinarian was really interested in what treats I was bringing in, because they were refusing to take the treats that the vet clinic would give the dogs, for giving them their shots and everything. So my dogs would refuse their treats, but I always took treats in with me. And so she was really fascinated. She's like, what is in these? And she took the bag and she smelled them and she's like, oh my gosh, she's like, you need to sell these. And so I was like, okay, like maybe that is a thing. And I think that was in 2015 when I started Snake River Barkery, because it was a lot easier to do an online store in 2015 than it was 20 plus years ago. So so that's how it was born, and it took off from there.
That is awesome. And it is cool because, the reaction that she had with those, with the, your dog's not taking other treats and then they love yours. I can vouch for that. My boys, they'd check the box. They could smell the box when I brought it in the house when I got them. And so everybody knows here, The cool thing is that she's got a subscription service that you can actually order them and have them delivered to you every month if you want to. And that's what we actually did, to the point where like the boys knew what time of month it was for the treats to be showing up. And I can say with no hesitation, they have been the most popular treats I've ever seen with any dog. I have taken them and given them to other pups, and it's like if you put two side by side, they're going to grab yours every time, which is always a fun thing, right? So when you get going with this stuff, like you've got several different flavors you've come into. How do you go through the process of coming up with what to do? And let's actually even back it back a little bit. What was your process of getting through, of not just coming up with the basic recipes, but what was some of the research that you had to do to come up with these, the formulas that you're using, and making sure that they're fresh, they're solid ingredients. And, as you're going through and figuring out, okay, here's all the stuff that's in the treats on the shelf that you shouldn't be giving your pets. What's the difference? What was that experience like?
Well, I wanted to use whole ingredients because a lot of the pet food companies, they do what they call splitting ingredients. And that's why they will have like meal or terms like that. And I wanted whole ingredients in my dog treats. That's the whole point behind them, and to be human consumable ingredients, not just because I watched a documentary on the pet food industry, and how most pet foods and pet treats are made in mass production is pretty disgusting. I would never put it in my mouth, but with my dog treats, I have actually eaten every single flavor and taste tested them myself. So, and I use human consumable ingredients. Like I work with vendors. The stuff that I put in my dog treats are probably things that you have in your own cupboard. So, and I work with a local fish market to get my salmon. So it's wild caught, US sourced fish. So, and I get it fresh from them and then put it in my freezer. So, yeah. So it's been an interesting experience in putting the recipes together and taste testing. And of course, the dogs love taste testing them. I mean, they always love it when I'm experimenting with new flavors.
And, I'm thinking about the fact that people are always talking about their dogs underfoot when they're cooking dinner. I can imagine that yours and yours are not tiny either. So
no, they're not.
Yeah. So you want to share a little bit?
Dante's a 78-pound husky, and I've had bruises on the backs of my legs from him pawing at me because he wants a taste.
I'm sure, most definitely. So as you've started going through, you've been growing and getting, you got the subscription service going, which has been awesome. What's like, where are some of the places that you're shipping right now? Because you're not in a lot of retail places, are you?
No, there's only 2 retail outlets because my product wasn't really created for retail. I wanted to because I bake all the dog treats fresh when they're ordered. I have no inventory on the shelf because I don't want to lose product, and I want the freshest possible product to go out to customers. So there's only 2 local places here in Nampa that will retail them, but I ship to Pennsylvania, Tennessee, course, down to Texas, Oregon. I have quite a few people here in Idaho that get them shipped. So pretty much everywhere, anywhere they'll buy them. So I have people who buy them for gifts and send them to their friends. And so.
Right. Now, that's something that you said I thought was really important to pay attention to with this, is the fact that everything you have really is fresh. It's not it's not something that's going to sit on the shelf. Like, it's going to sit on your shelf longer, or on our shelves way longer than it ever stays in yours. Because I know this because of the fact that I've seen, when you're baking stuff and when packages show up kind of situation, because you post stuff on social media, which is something that I think it's really an important thing to think about, is like, if you're buying treats off the shelf at the grocery store, at, your Petco, PetSmart, any of those kind of places, how long does that stuff, do you have any kind of idea of how long that stuff has been sitting on a shelf compared to when you might be buying it? Do you have any idea on that?
I have no idea, but I do know in the pet industry, like with pet food specifically, I think their rule of thumb is they want the dog food to last for 30 years on the shelf. So the preservatives that they put in there will make it last for 30 years before the bag is even open. So it's like, that's pretty gross.
Yeah.
I mean, I
So,
can't imagine that being a high quality item. So
but it will survive a zombie apocalypse. So I
yeah,
guess there's one advantage to their stuff over yours. That's about the only thing. But
exactly. Yeah. It's kind of like human Twinkies. They'll
yeah, yeah. So I love that you're doing that, and it really brings things to a whole different creature because of the fact that with your stuff, it is fresh, it is made specifically for that order. And that's, I'm going to reiterate that your stuff is made to order, which I love that. And you've got, only a couple of retail. So if you're in the Boise, Nampa area, you can pick them up at a couple of places, not very many. But if you want to order online, you can always get that and they get shipped out. Now, let's talk about, you've got how many different flavors now?
I have three.
Okay.
Actually,
So,
no, four. I've just
okay.
unleashed the fourth one this year. So
Okay. All right. So spend just a minute, talk about the flavors. And what I'd like you to do is tell me, like, how do you come up with the flavors and what's the process you go through to, your experimentation process to make sure you've got a great product at the end?
well, the first flavor that I have is salmon. And I kind of had the brainiac idea of almost having like a salmon cake. So I figured this different spices that would go into like, salmon, like crab cakes, they get put together. And so I use dill and parsley in with them. So it's kind of like a savory treat or whatever, but that's definitely the most popular flavor. The next one was pumpkin spice. I know that was like a huge thing. Like I think it's in October that everybody goes pumpkin spice crazy, and it's only like through the whole entire month. But mine is all year round. So, um, but the third one is carob mint, and the fourth one is honey ginger. And my process is basically looking at things that are healthy for dogs' digestive systems. Like mint is really good for the digestive system. Carob actually settles the stomach. So if a dog has an upset stomach, carob actually made up into, like if you use carob powder and make it up into a paste, it's kind of like canine Pepto-Bismol, basically. It'll help settle their tummy. Same thing with ginger. Ginger also settles the stomach. And so like salmon and the dill and the parsley that's put in my salmon dog treats, those are also really good for the digestive system. So I was picking spices and flavors because pumpkin has a lot of good fiber content, and it's really healthy for dogs as well. So I pick things that are very healthy for the dog, and then the spices that are good for their stomach and their digestive system. And so it's not just like creative flavors, but like there's a nutritional aspect to, is this going to be healthy for them? Is this beneficial? And actually, somebody reported to me one time that she said, during the longevity of giving her dogs my treats, that her dog doesn't fart anymore. So I was just like, she's like, well, they're less gassy. And I'm like, well, I'm not really sure how I can use that as a marketing tactic, but okay. It was great to know. So,
That is
so I guess it's
hilarious.
really good for their digestive system. So, cause the silent but deadly ones is like, ugh.
Yep. Yeah. I'm sure a couple people are going, okay, what's that website? Yeah. But I love that. I love that you're going through and you're thinking about things with the ingredients that are actually going to have health benefits as opposed to just be a treat. Because
Yeah.
treats are awesome. Every dog wants a treat, and every human wants a treat for that matter.
Oh yeah.
And going on off that a little bit, if you're in the middle, we're recording this in June, if you're having a pumpkin spice, fix need or something, order some dog treats, just eat those, you'll be fine.
Sure.
Yeah. But I love that you're thinking about those things, those things that are like, okay, how is this going to be beneficial to the dog, not just a treat that they're going to
Yeah.
like, because that really does make a difference. Now, one thing I would love for you to talk for just a minute about is, I know that because you've told me about this, that you have to go through a pretty rigorous process to get like approved in order to sell this stuff. And I think a lot of people
Yeah.
don't realize, because at the end of the day, there's a lot of times like you might find somebody at a local market that's selling treats, which it's always cool because it's homemade stuff. But a lot of them, they're just making treats and they're selling them. And that's what it is. But I
Yeah.
know you go that extra step to where you're
Yeah.
actually going through this whole certification process to make sure that everything isn't it basically like an FDA approved kind of thing?
Yeah, so Idaho, I have to go through Idaho. It's Idaho Department. So they have to scrutinize the ingredients that are in the product, approve my packaging and all the marketing terms that I'm allowed to use. And they compare everything to AFCO regulations. And so I have to follow those same AFCO regulations that the large pet food manufacturers follow. And so there's like apparently an entire book of ingredients that's allowable that AFCO says is allowable to be in pet treats or pet food. And so I have to follow those guidelines. So I actually had an argument with the Department of Ag early on in the process because I originally wanted grapeseed oil in my product, but that was not something AFCO allowed, even though it's in dog supplements. But because they didn't have it listed as something that was okay for pet treats, I was not allowed to use that. And so I ended up using coconut oil instead because I wasn't going to go to a cheaper oil just to, fulfill AFCO's requirements. And so coconut oil was allowable. And even though it was a little bit more expensive, it's like, well, I'm just going to go with it because I want this to be a high quality item. So
No, that is cool. And it's amazing how much you have to go through in order to make it, you go through that whole process of here's what's allowed, here's what's not allowed. And I think it is really important to talk about that and let people know this is a process. It is a food item. And when, when you're talking about this, saying this is human grade food, really is. And it's not the cheap stuff either. It's the good stuff, right?
yeah. Well, and the interesting thing about the term human grade is that with AFCO and the FDA, human grade only means that it's made in a facility that is making human food. So I can't use the term human grade because I do not have a certified kitchen to make human food because my business doesn't serve people. So it's kind of like there was 3 items that I had to check the boxes on to be allowed to use that term. And the final one was I had to have a certified kitchen that serves human food. And I'm like, well, my business doesn't do that. And so it was a catch-22 situation. So I use the word human consumable because human grade doesn't actually mean that a human can eat it. It means it's prepared in a way that human food would be prepared. So it's sanitary conditions and that the ingredients could possibly be eaten by a person. But mine being human consumable actually means you really can't eat it because it's
Right.
really human consumable food. So
Got it. Okay. All right. So yeah, you get all kinds of fun and education about this to find out what
yeah,
we actually eating.
yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to shift gears a little bit. You said it was it 2016 or 2015 when you started the business? When was that?
It was 2015.
2015. Okay. So what was it, what were some of the biggest hurdles of getting started when you actually took it to this is going to be a real business? What were some of the things you were trying to figure out that you didn't know being an entrepreneur was going to be so damn hard?
One of the biggest hurdles was all the regulations. In the very, very beginning, I thought pet treats were exempt from the regulations, and the Department of Ag actually showed up at my door and reminded me that no, pet treats did have to be in compliance. And so I was like, oh, so I, had a crossroads there of continue or shut it down because it does cost. So it was one of those things that I had to really kind of pare down the business. And I actually had to get all of my product nutritionally analyzed in a lab. So to get the nutritional analysis. And so that stuff has to be on the packaging. And but the Department of Ag was really cool about it. They were like, as long as you're trying to be in compliance and you're working towards it, we're not going to, make you stop selling them. But just keep us in the loop and let us know. And as soon as you get your analysis back from the lab, let us know and we'll work towards getting you approved. So they were really cool about it. That was probably the biggest hurdle that I really hit. And then, learning marketing. and getting out there, because I'm kind of an introvert, as you well know. And so getting out there and selling and talking to people is not second nature to me. But when it comes to dogs, I absolutely love dogs, and this business is a passion of mine, and I'm too stubborn to quit. So I just keep going.
I love it. Yeah, no, and that's something. I mean, you and I have that in common, which we know is like we're dog people. And the first one is like even
Yeah.
this Saturday, there was a group that I'm part of here that had a family get together, and a whole bunch of people just got together. They brought their husbands, wives, kids, all that kind of stuff. And I showed up. The first thing I did was make friends with the dog.
Oh,
So I sort of,
absolutely.
yeah, absolutely. So yeah, this is fun stuff. Now, fast forward, because we're looking a few years now. Fast forward,
Yeah.
where did you think that this would grow as much as it has, as far as like the ability, like you've now got multiple flavors that you're doing, you've got it in stores, you're shipping out of state, all that kind of stuff. Did you actually think that that's where you were going to go when you started?
That was my hope. That was what I really wanted to do. I wanted to be able to get it growing to where it could ship all over the country, so that it's not just because most of the target market really wasn't here in Idaho in 2015. And so a lot of the people around here didn't really seem interested. And so that was my hope. And so that was kind of like what I really wanted to focus on, was getting it shipped out to people across the country. So it wasn't just limited to Idaho. So that, anyone in the United States could give their dogs this, these treats every single day, and or multiple times throughout the day if they wanted. And spoil their dog rotten and know that what they're getting is a fresh item. I always tell people it's the freshest dog biscuits you'll ever give your dog, really, because I don't know any other dog barkery, and I've networked with quite a few of them. I don't know any other dog barkery that actually makes them to order. Most of them usually will have an inventory, and they bake them in advance and then just ship them out when they get the orders. And I I didn't really want to do it that way. So
No, that is great. So that actually leads me to another question. Because a lot of people, I mean, obviously we're gonna say, um, go to the website, go buy some cookies for your dog. But other, without saying that part specifically, what are some of the things that people need to be aware of that they should probably like check out, like the ingredient wise, or questions to ask before they're buying stuff, especially if they're buying stuff at like some of the farmers markets and things like that? Because I know that's where a lot of people that are doing the homemade fresh biscuits kind of thing, I know a lot of them, that's where I see them at. And I know that you have a couple of things that are like, okay, people need to be aware of these kind of things. What are some of the things that people should be aware of, and maybe a couple questions that they should be asking before they're actually buying those treats?
well, one of the top things is look at the ingredients list, and if it has more than 5 ingredients, I would start to question how good they really are, um, and make sure that it's stuff that you can actually pronounce, because there's a lot of technical terms for preservatives that people don't realize. I mean, if you look at the FDA, like the sugar has like a million and different one chemical names that they can put on the packaging, but it's still sugar. Second, if it's a frosted dog treat, look for titanium dioxide. That actually causes cancer in dogs. And I know it's in a lot of quote unquote dog safe icings because it keeps it white. And so that's been a new thing that has prompted a lot of people to look at that. And look at the price point and ask them, like, where are they getting the ingredients from? Because you want to make sure that it's also U.S. sourced product, because something that's coming from, say, China isn't going to have the same safety protocols. Because I think back in 2015, when I started this, there was the chicken jerky. I think several thousand dogs died from that whole nightmare, and they could never nail it down to one brand. Well, that's because they were all made in the same Chinese food manufacturing facility and just put in different bags. So it's good to be aware of where they're getting the ingredients, and they should know where they're getting them if it's a U.S. sourced company or not. That's been my main goal, even if it costs me a little bit more money, is to make sure it's U.S. sourced, so it's safe.
Right. No, and I love that bringing that out is like, it's just, and the reality is a lot of times in different countries, it is their regulations are different. That's just a
Yeah.
fact. And so knowing what's going into it. I mean, think about this. People are at this craze of, okay, what are you eating? What's in your cupboard? Can you pronounce all the things? You need to be doing that with your dogs too,
Yeah.
because
Oh
they're
yeah.
they're they're living creatures just like we are. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that is very cool. So, let's see what other fun kind of questions we want to talk about. As you've been doing all kinds of fun stuff now. What's your next thought of what's your next evolution? What are you going to be? Do you have any new flavors you're thinking about, or anything new and exciting going on that you want to talk about?
Well, some of the new things that I've added to my website recently were recipes for food toppers. And
Okay.
so because, I don't want to sell just dog treats, but I came up with these recipes because I supplement my dog's food because I do still feed my dog kibble, but I researched and found a local Idaho brand dog food that I felt more comfortable
Hmm.
um, with what was in it. And since it's a local and it's US sourced, and so that made me feel a lot better. And so I decided to start throwing together some recipes for some dog food toppers to supplement. And that's what I do is I supplement my dog's kibble with whole food that I make these little recipes. And so I put some recipes that they're just a digital file that you purchase it and it emails you the digital PDF of the recipe, and
Hmm.
so that people can add to make their own recipe book if they want to of various recipes. And I think there's even a cupcake recipe that I included, and then some food toppers. And so if you want to make your dog's birthday cake, you could. So
Very cool. No, and I love that because it is I mean, if you think about it, that's yeah, sell a recipe book. I mean, it's
yeah,
a very easy thing to put out there. It's another thing people want. I mean, from my standpoint, it's like I'm looking at recipes all the time because I'm looking at stuff that I can meal prep and get it all prepped and ready to go, so I don't
yeah,
have to cook every night of the week. And so I'm looking at that kind of stuff, and some of those recipe books are not cheap, but the
no,
amount of
yeah.
time that it saves and knowing exactly what's going into it, because I know exactly which products I'm buying to do it and everything, it does make a big difference. So being able to do that for your
Well, and
dog as
I
well is huge.
Yeah, and I wanted to put together an actual book, but then I was like, well, wait a minute. What if people don't want 30 recipes? What if they
Hmm.
just only want a couple? So I posted them on the website as separate recipes so that people could, if they wanted to buy all five, I think right now I only have 5 recipes out there, but if they wanted to buy all 5, they'll get a discount, but they could buy just a couple if they
Hmm.
wanted to.
Okay.
So then that way they could just only buy the one recipe or the cake recipe or whatever, if that's what they were interested in. And so then that way they didn't have to spend $20 if they were going to only use like one recipe.
Right.
So, I figured it was a cost savings. So
Got it. Okay. No, that makes sense. It's a good way to think about it.
yeah.
Awesome. All right. So we're starting to wrap up here. Now, as we end up, we have 2 final questions I ask everybody.
Okay.
Okay. Last question is going to be, how can they contact you? So that we'll talk about that in a second. Because I
Okay.
know that, I mean, seriously, if you're listening to this, you need to just, if you have dogs or anybody who have dogs, by the way, just so you can order treats to go to other people who have dogs. Like, I know several people that I find out they have a puppy, and I'm immediately like right on Debi's website. I'm ordering them pups, and some of those people become subscribers now, which is awesome. I
Yeah.
love that. Um, so you can do that as well. So we'll talk about that in a second. So the second to the last question. This is the Meet Cool People show.
Mhm.
So I would love for you to tell me, what does Meet Cool People mean to you?
Meet cool people means to me just meeting people of all different backgrounds with different perspectives, different ideas. If we were all the same, it'd be really boring. So I love meeting new people and being able to strike up conversations with them. I think it's grown my network a lot more, and being able to share, your stuff with other people and their stuff with other people. And so it's kind of great in growing that network and being able to kind of collaborate with other people as well, because I think it's made my business better to be able to collaborate with those other people. It's been a lot better, and it's actually fun to be able to network with people that were like-minded. So, the entrepreneurs, we have a different mindset typical people. And so, we have different conversations that are actually more entertaining really than most people's conversations. So yeah, so that's what it means to me.
That is perfect. I love it. And yes, entrepreneurs are definitely wired different. That is for sure. Awesome. All right, Debbie. So I know people are going to want to get some treats from you. So how can they get a hold of you?
They can go to the website, which is snakeriverbarkery.com. I also can be found on Facebook and Instagram. So
awesome.
But the website is the easiest place to find me.
Okay. And for the social handles, is it Snake River Barkery?
I think it's Snake River B is the handle for Instagram and Facebook.
But they're both on your website, right?
Yes, they are. There's links at the bottom. Yeah.
Very cool. So if you go to snakeriverbarkery.com, you can check out all the cool stuff. You can go buy some fun stuff, and then you can go follow her on Instagram and Facebook and check out the stuff. She's even started doing videos of while she's like, making the biscuits and cutting them up and all the fun stuff as well, which is very cool.
Yeah, because when I say they're handmade, I'm not kidding. They're handmade.
They are handmade. I have seen the video. I've seen the proof. That is awesome. All right. Well, Debbie, thank you so much for coming and hanging out today. I knew it was going to be a fun conversation. And, just because, you and I have known each other probably longer than anybody in our lives. And I kind of said this a little bit at the beginning, but Debbie and I have known each other since we were very young, like what, second grades, first grade, something like that.
I think it was first grade.
Was it first grade? Yeah. So it's been a really long time because, we're getting old, but it's been a very long time, and it's great to see, we've been friends for so long, but then to get to see your journey and what you have done with the Barkery, it's been a lot of fun to see that growth. So thank you so much for coming today and sharing that story.
Thank you.
All right. Everybody get out there. Have an amazing week. Thank you so much for coming and listening in. And if there's anything I can do to help you out, reach out and let me know. Take care. And that wraps up another Meet Cool People show. Now, if you like what you heard, be sure to give us a like, subscribe, or review so I can help introduce these amazing cool people to even more amazing cool people. And just remember, meeting cool people is just the beginning. You need to have a system in place to follow up with the amazing people that you meet. This is exactly what we do for our clients. If you'd like to see if my team and I can help you, go to followuprockstar.com and check out the case study video to see exactly how we're helping our clients turn casual connections into cash clients for life. Again, go to followuprockstar.com and we'll see how we can work together to turn you into a follow-up rockstar.